Hi Homeworthy, I'm Amber. Welcome to my home in Chicago. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name is Amber Ingram. I'm a content creator in Chicago, Illinois. Welcome to my home. In our home search, we were looking in a specific neighborhood, which in this neighborhood made it a little more difficult because we're closer to the city. But really what it came down to was not only that neighborhood was number one, number two was Cole, my husband, and I both had one non-negotiable that we each got to pick. Mine was having an outdoor space, which you'll get to see later, and then his was having a fireplace. Now, because I am in the home and DIY content creation industry, one thing that I really wanted was a home that had potential where I could come in and put my own touches on it. Before we started looking for a home, I was already kind of dabbling in furniture flipping and, I love decorating our apartments in the past. So when looking for a home, we definitely wanted something that wasn't already put together, that had potential for projects. Every time we would walk into a home, I would envision, what can I do in this space that will add value to it. I would classify my home's design style as a little vintage, a little eclectic, but also a little modern. At least that's what I always try to strive for when putting together rooms. I really enjoy old character, which you'll see I've added some of that into my home, and my home also already had some of that when we bought this place, which was really something we were looking for as well when we were looking to purchase a place. Some things around that are really quirky, and I do love just a little bit of quirk, a conversation piece, I guess is the way I want to put it. I do have two cats, so I love incorporating them into my home in ways that function for both of us, for us and also for the cats, but also aesthetically still make sense in the space. This is our entryway, and it was the first room that I ever tackled in our home. When we first moved in, it was just a closet rod that went across the back wall here. And what I did was I found an IKEA wardrobe to essentially make our coat closet. We also have the electrical panel here, so it needed to be specifically out of the way of that, and the size worked perfect. So this is an IKEA wardrobe that I hacked and then built an additional cabinet to go on top that looked similar and took it to the ceiling to just kind of, elongate the ceiling and make as much storage as possible. And yeah, it's a really fun way for our guests to enter our home. I added this peel and stick wallpaper that I found off of Etsy, and it's definitely a talking point when people come into the home. They love to comment on the wallpaper, and it just kind of like sets the mood when you're walking into our home. And I love the color variation in it. Welcome to our living room. This is definitely the most used space in our home. Whenever we have friends or family over, we're all gathering around on the sofa and around the fireplace, which when we were searching for a home, one of Cole's non-negotiables was that he wanted to have a fireplace in the home. And while this fireplace currently doesn't function, maybe one day it will, we absolutely love it. It is definitely a statement when you walk into our home. Now, when we bought the place, it had a single mantle that was a little taller and a little shorter that I ended up tearing down and building this mantle. One thing that I will say about when I DIY, I always want to make sure that it functions for us first. So when coming up with a plan for this fireplace mantle, I wanted to make sure that we weren't going to have any TV cords, because this was also Cole's pick of the living room. So what I did was I ran a channel at an angle that goes, you can't see it obviously because it's inside, down through the side. Right here, a TV cord will insert And then I've got a little output right here that plugs in straight to this outlet. So that's one little fun fact about this mantle. One day we would love to get this fireplace up and working, but currently it's just for aesthetics. So moving on from the fireplace, we'll move to our coffee table. This, when we moved in, was one of the first things that I DIY'd. It was definitely one of the easiest DIYs I've ever done. It's strictly made out of pine wood, and it took me about a weekend, and we love quick and easy weekend projects. To our left here, you'll see this grid mirror. This was very popular back during, I would say around 2020. It actually was one of my very first DIYs I ever built by myself. We were living in a smaller, different apartment in the city, and this is made out of a piece of plywood, some 1x2s, and then a whole bunch of mirrors from IKEA. So that's kind of fun that, you know, it's kind of bopped around with us from apartment to apartment, and it's landed in now our home that we own. And over here, one of the big things that we were looking for when we were purchasing a Chicago condo was old character. And these are really fun. They're actually blinds that fold out. So we actually use these every single day. We shut these at night. And then in the morning, one of my favorite things to do first thing in the morning is to come in here and close them. They fold right into the wall, which I think is a really fun and old feature that you don't see in a lot of new builds. On the walls that you'll see, we have a lot of picture frame molding. This is something that I recently added to this home. I think it brings so much character, especially that old character that we love, into spaces, and you'll see that a lot, especially in this living room space. This is a really fun project because we have this storage door here that leads to our furnace and our cat's bathroom. So in order to disguise this storage door, I just continued the wall molding over the door. That way we could have 3 separate picture frame moldings that were all the same size, and it helped disguise this door. So as I mentioned before, something that is really important to me anytime I start a DIY project is its functionality. And as I've also mentioned, we do have 2 cats here. And if you're a cat owner, you know the dilemma of owning a litter box. It's something we have to put up with that we don't really love to put up with, but nonetheless, you've got to have it. So when we bought this place, this door had a grate down here at the bottom. It wasn't a return air vent, so what I did was I took out the grate and built these 2 little tiny saloon doors for my cats to enter and exit to now that is their litter box room. So there are litter boxes in here. They just pop these open and come in and out as they please. So to make these doors kind of blend in with the house and carry out what else is going around in the house, I mimicked the same trim using probably 100 toothpicks that we have that goes around our kitchen doors, you know, to keep everything cohesive. And I think it's just like a really fun touch. Like, we now have our entrance to the kitchen, and our cats now have their own little entrance to their litter box space. Similar to how I grew up with family photos all over my house and my grandparents' house, I wanted to bring that same feeling into my home, but all in one space. So I cut this mat myself to encompass all of my favorite photos from before I was even born to present day. So for example, this is a picture of my mom and dad at my dad's senior year football game back in high school. And these are Cole's foster parents back in college when they first met at Virginia Tech. And I love that this one mat just encompasses all of some of our favorite moments that we've had throughout our lives. A lot of the furniture that you'll see in this house was found on Facebook Marketplace. Starting with this couch, I actually found it on Facebook Marketplace before we even moved into this condo. And I think Cole might have thought I was a little crazy because I was like, I found the perfect couch. It's the exact dimensions. It's gonna help the space flow, kind of divide the living from the dining room. And therefore, we ended up with this couch for $300. And I think moving into like what I would consider the end of the living space is this wall. So this piece of furniture I actually found at an antique store. I'm from a very small town in Southern Virginia. And this was my very first piece of furniture I ever bought before moving to Chicago 6 years ago. So it's lived with us in every single apartment, and now maybe this will be its resting place. I'm not sure yet, but in this condo. Something I try to accomplish when putting art on my walls, and Cole gets after me for this, it took me a really long time to get art up on these walls, is that I always want there to be some kind of meaning or story behind what I'm displaying. And these playing cards were actually the table numbers at our wedding. And I cut the mat for it. Actually, I thought it'd be a really unique way to showcase them as something that was a really meaningful day to us. And also, it's got a little bit of a secret behind it. So 4/19/25 was the day that we got married. And just a way to showcase that without screaming, hey, this is our wedding date. So moving on from this space, we will continue into the dining room. Back during the fun pandemic times, I really started getting into furniture flipping. I worked full-time as a UI designer, so I was sitting behind a desk all day. And at the end of the day, I just really needed to do something with my hands. So when I started doing those projects, I also then started watching a whole lot of YouTube and was really influenced by some of the DIY home creators on there to start posting my projects online. And that slowly turned into something that I realized could be full-time. And therefore, that was always the goal in the end. We didn't purchase our condo specifically for my job, but it definitely was a good push, I guess, for a lack of a better term, for me to create more, try new things, fail a lot, explore larger projects, learn different tools, and eventually it turned into a larger community, which I absolutely love. And I've been doing this for a year full-time come September. So now we are in the dining room, which leads right off of the living room. They're all kind of one big space here. As I mentioned before, a lot of the furniture that you will see in my home is from Facebook Marketplace. This table and stools, actually the chairs were from Facebook Marketplace as well. These are old bent wood chairs. I got these off of Facebook Marketplace for $10 a piece. So $40. Actually, when I found them, I remember saying to Nicole, you have to go get these. I couldn't go myself at the time. Like, it is such a steal. These go for, these can get pretty expensive, but we really love this space. When we have people over, this is, a second means of gathering if we're not in the living room. And it's really nice because our dining room flows to the outdoors, but also flows into the kitchen and from the living room. When we moved in, there are a lot of really quirky things about this space. So for example, this chandelier, there was not a chandelier here. It was a very large can light. I mean, maybe the largest can light I've ever seen in my life. It was probably 10 inches wide. So I bought this chandelier off of Wayfair. It was one of my biggest purchases for this home. And Cole and I figured out how to wire it and to put it into the ceiling. It was quite the adventure, but we really love it. It kind of brings in that little bit of vintage, little bit of modern into this space. And it definitely makes a statement as you enter the home. So as I mentioned, we love to have people over, family over, and the record player is a hit when we have those moments. This space right here is something that I feel like I'm still kind of working on figuring out how I want it to be designed, but I do love having the really big mirror on the wall, the way that it just bounces light throughout this space, and being able, when you're on one side of the living room, to see like kind of what's behind you and around you is a really cool way. And adding mirrors into your space is a great way to make the space brighter. And since we are north facing, we'll take all the lighting that we can get in this condo. Moving into maybe the favorite part of my house, this is my dry bar that I actually just finished about a month ago. When we first moved in, this space was a random nook. There was nothing in it, and I imagine at some point it was supposed to be a coat closet, but there weren't doors on it. So when we first moved in, I really needed space to work because I worked from home full time. So what I did was I built out a cloffice. It had a fold-out desk, and I did end up adding bifold doors at that point to kind of be able to close my work at the end of the day. And this year I decided that I wanted to change the space up, so I decided to turn it into a dry bar. Now, a lot of people ask, why is it called a dry bar? It technically can't be called a wet bar because there is no sink, there's not a water source. So this is the dry bar that I built. I built all of the cabinets that you see. I made the arch. I built in the arch, did all of the drywall. The only parts of this bar that I did not build are the countertops and the drawer fronts and the door fronts. I did order those from a company, but one day I do hope to be able to explore or learn how to build drawer fronts and door fronts like this, but it turned out beautiful. Actually, I always envisioned this space to be a green-blue color. Green's my favorite color. I really wanted to add green into our home somewhere, and in the end, we ended up going with this deep red-brown. Actually, Cole kind of had the final say here, and I think it was the perfect choice to bring this entire living and dining space together. But we've really been enjoying it. We can't wait to have people over to host them here and to get to enjoy our dry bar. Interior design's always been something that I've been passionate about and that I've loved exploring. When we were in apartments, you know, I couldn't do such big projects or at least I didn't think I could at that point. I've really learned a lot since then, but it was more just about the decorating aspects and how we can take this place that we've rented and make it into a home that feels like us. I'll say that my interior design inspiration comes from my grandmother and my mother. My grandmother and my mother always had their houses put together. It felt like a home. When you walked in, you knew whose home you were in, and that's how I want people to feel when they come into my home. Now we're in the kitchen. So one fun feature about this condo or about this kitchen, actually, when we were touring the place and we spotted these doors, they used to be completely covered in white paint. I just actually recently refinished them. We knew that we had gems on our hands, and it was part of that old character that we were really looking for. So although it's a little odd that they lead into our kitchen and we never close them, I love that we now have the option to. But it is a really fun peekaboo moment. You know, you've got the dark wood doors kind of contrasting with the walls, and we really enjoy that they've now been refinished and brought back to their original glory. They are original to the home. I don't know if I mentioned that before, and they're about 75 pounds. So in order to even begin to get these down, I had to bust into the drywall. They're on a wheel system, like a really old wheel system. So my husband had to help me a lot to get these down. I did all of the paint stripping and the sanding outside in my workshop on the deck, which you'll see later. And also the hardware is original. They were also under layers of paint, and when I stripped those, I could not believe what I uncovered. But just, again, that extra character that we're finding throughout our home and uncovering and trying to bring to life is really important to us. We bought this place in 2022. In 2023, I was like, it is time to redo this kitchen. So the first thing I did was I built all the cabinets for the uppers. So anything that you see on top here and leading to the ceiling were not originally here. And actually this range hood was not originally here either. There is, fun fact, a hidden cabinet behind here that I just didn't take down. I built over top of it, but I really wanted this kitchen to have some kind of focal point or statement piece when people walked in here, when you saw it from the living dining area, and built a range hood cover over our existing range. And I just really think extending the cabinets and the molding to the ceiling has elevated this space. It's really brought your eyes up We have 10-foot ceilings here, so we really like to highlight that because that's something you don't find a lot in the city. Because we don't have a lot of counter space, I wanted to maximize that as much as possible, which meant getting the microwave off the counter. So what I did was I removed the door that was here for the lower cabinet, put the microwave on this shelf, and then also, again, back to functionality and DIY with the cats. So like the cat litter box situation, we didn't want their feeders to be out and about, potentially us bumping and running into them, but didn't have a great solution for where they should be. So since the microwave was already opening a lower cabinet in order for it to be hidden away and off the counters, it worked out perfectly for their cat feeders to be down here too. So all we had to do was add a plug into the cabinet underneath, and it works seamlessly for us and keeps their space clean. So in addition to building all of the cabinets and this range hood, I also did all of the tile work that is in here. It was my very first time tiling, and I have to say, it was probably one of the most therapeutic DIYs that I've ever done. But I decided to do your, I would say, fairly typical subway tile, but add just a little bit of a twist to it. So we've got the stacked row down here at the bottom, and then your typical brick lay over top of that. But then around this portion that leads to the ceiling, I took the tile all the way to the wall and then added the stacked row at the top as well. And I just think that adds just a little bit of uniqueness, but keeps it classic. So from the kitchen, leading into the bedrooms and the bathroom is our hallway, and I want to touch on this arch really quick. When we first moved in, this was not here. It was actually just, even this wall above here was not here. It was just a wall on each side. And this was a big project that I tackled last year, adding this archway in. It actually has quite a sentimental bit to me because while I was finishing up this archway, somebody really close to me passed away. So every time that I walk through it, I think of him, and it's just really special. I also built this archway before I built the dry bar, so figuring out how to build an arch was challenging, but again, rewarding, and I messed up a lot, but then I was prepared for the dry bar when that came around. Now we are in our bedroom. There are actually 2 bedrooms in this house. This one is our primary bedroom, and then we made the other bedroom into an office/flex space. When we purchased this condo, both bedrooms had really old, beat up carpet in them. So the very first project I will say that we did in this house was ripping up all the carpet, and then we had new hardwood floors laid in the 2 bedrooms specifically. All of the other hardwood floor throughout the house is original except for the bedrooms, and it has made quite the difference. This room was also a taupe box when we moved in here. So we had great carpet, we had taupe walls, and things that I've done other than taking up the floor and taking up the carpet and laying hardwood floors is I painted the ceiling. So I added the crown molding and then brought the ceiling color down to kind of enclose the space and make it feel really cozy. I love it actually at night when you're just laying in bed and just looking up. It feels like a big warm hug. But at the bottom, I did chair rail molding, which typically picture rail molding is what people will do, but chair rail molding is much less expensive than picture rail molding, so that's what kind of stops the color space. This bed I actually just DIY'd. So the base is an IKEA Nordly platform bed, and I really wanted a completely fabric bed, a completely upholstered bed, but those can be pretty pricey at times. So out of MDF, I DIY'd my own headboard, and then I covered all of the drawers that are in the Nordly IKEA platform bed in fabric as well to really bring out that full upholstered bed look. And it added storage. So one big thing about living in the city is that you always need extra storage. You can never have enough. And this bed has really given us the extra storage that we were hoping for. Another project that I did a couple of years ago was I built these nightstands. This was actually my first time building a piece of furniture completely from scratch. So I had the idea, I really wanted a drawer, then I wanted a pull-out section for us to like put our phones, again, extra space. We're always looking for ways to either maximize storage or functionally create more space in our home. And the top is a piece of tile that I cut down to make, this beautiful top. I really love the marble look that runs through it. I think it adds a lot of character and a bit of flow into the space, and also the colors just bring in, again, the warmth from the ceiling and now the headboard on both sides of the bed. So for the art above the bed, this was actually a very last minute kind of happy accident. I have been collecting thrifted frames for a very long time. Anytime I go to the thrift store and I see a frame that could potentially work in the house, I will buy it. It might be one of my downfalls about being a thrifter or DIYer, but it worked out in this instance. So as you saw in my living room with the kind of asymmetrical, unique cut mat, I love asymmetry and for things just to have a little bit of quirkiness to them. So that's why I off-centered this from the center of the bed. But this piece of fabric is actually a sample of fabric that I got for a chair that I never ended up finishing. I ended up selling the chair before finishing that DIY project, but I needed something to go above the bed. I had these thrifted frames. I loved the sample of the fabric, so I just decided to frame it, and it's really worked out well in this space. Now, the picture, the little tiny picture to the right of it is actually a piece of craft paper that I also bought for a different DIY project, and I've just always really loved the color palette and decided, you know what, let's frame that too and see if it worked out. And it really does add a little bit of uniqueness. You've got these soft curves here, but then this kind of rigid dark black color and sharp frame lines, and I love that juxtaposition in the space. So in addition to the taupe walls and the carpet that we had when we first moved into this home, we also had very plain, very brown, hollow core bifold doors. These are actually the original closet doors that came with the space, but I added the molding and these beautiful knobs to make them a little bit more elevated, painted them, and it was a great way to really elevate the space for a little amount of cost and, not having to buy brand new doors, which would have cost me a lot more than what I DIY'd these for. So one thing I love doing, as you saw in my living room, is cutting unique mats, and we are very proud cat parents here of Bear and Scout. You'll see them a lot in my content, but this was just a fun way to showcase, we love our cats, but in a unique way by combining them. They are not brothers, but they're adopted brothers, and we love them very much. Outside of the bedroom windows is our outdoor deck space, and that's where I want to take you guys next. So welcome to our outdoor space. One of the big things that I really wanted when looking for a home was an outdoor space. I think it's really important to be able to get outside and to enjoy, especially living in the hustle and the bustle of the city and the large buildings. So we love to entertain, especially in the summer, and the way that this flows right from our kitchen into our dining, dry bar area to our outdoor space is perfect. This seating set is from Wayfair. It is so comfortable. I absolutely love it. Actually, my parents bought it for me for my 30th birthday, and we just absolutely love entertaining out here and enjoying, the summer. That's why we live in Chicago, is for the Chicago summers, and having an outdoor space to enjoy it is really important. So on this side of the deck, you might recognize it from my content. This is where all of the DIY, all of the saw cutting, all of the sanding, all of the paint stripping goes down. Since we live in the city, we do not have a garage or a shed per se for me to be able to do all of my DIY projects. So this is our storage. That's where I house all of my larger tools like my miter saw. And then I'll set up my little sawhorses out here with my piece of plywood, and this is where all of my DIY projects go down. Currently it's set up as an entertaining space. The big thing for us was, specifically for this table, this is actually a picnic table that folds into a bench so I can push it out of the way in order to be able to still do my projects. And then when we have people over, we fold it out into a picnic table situation and it works out perfectly. Home to me is the strongest muscle of our family. It's like the heartbeat that runs in our family and keeps our family strong and together. It's, you know, the work that we put into this place, the people that we bring into it, the small little nuggets that are throughout the home, like the plants that I've planted remind me of how excited my mom used to get when I was a child, of showing me how her plants have grown, and the arches reminded me of my grandfather. It's all of those little nuggets that build the home that we've worked so hard to create. Homeworthy, it was great having you, but it's time for me to go DIY some more projects. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.